What's up, everybody? Welcome to Generation Bitcoin. I'm here today with Jeff Hancock. How are you doing today, Jeff?
Great, Matt. Thanks for including us. It's a little bit early here in the UK. Should have checked that time zone before we got this organized, but it's really great to be in the show, and can't wait to talk about Bitcoin with you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. Just as a little backstory, you're the co-founder and CEO of Coinpass, as well as the CEO and founder of JHP Invest Limited. So if you can go a little bit more into your backstory, how did you find out about Bitcoin, and why did it appeal to you?
Sure. So I got kind of miniature introduced into Bitcoin way back in like 2013. My background has always been in cybersecurity and tech. Back in Australia, I looked after hotels and casinos, not the little mini slot machines, but something like a Vegas-sized casino. And that's where I kind of did my cut my teeth on tech and security and kind of big infrastructure. Moved to the UK, did a lot of stuff in data centers, hedge funds, etc. And when I was working at a managed service provider, they came along and they'd been ransomware. Unfortunately, this is back still in the Silk Road days of crypto, and they had a ransom to pay. And I basically learned how to source, sell, buy, and do the wallets for Bitcoin in about 3 days. So we had a very big crash course in doing it. And at the end of it, we got the encryption key for the client. They were all sorted out. They were all happy. And in the process, we had some Bitcoin left over. I kind of basically put it aside and didn't do anything with it for quite some time, up until about 2016 when everything kind of got interesting again. And we dug out the emails and was like, do we still have that wallet code? And unfortunately, we didn't. And that was somewhere between 60 and 70 Bitcoin gone forever. So it's a bit of a salt in the wound, trial by fire. But I think when we started to get really back into it again, I started investing in the property business, which is JHP Invest, my property company, and getting into consulting and some other sorts of investing, and realizing the antiquated problems with some of the banking system. Fiat, the way that there's a lot of government control around it, there's a lot of bureaucracy around it, and then there's this thing called Bitcoin where you can literally move wealth anywhere in the world, in just a few minutes for a matter of cents. And not just as an investing tool, I've used it for payments. I've used it to move my own wealth back and forth from Australia several times, purely because Barclays and some of the FX providers were just not doing a good enough job. So, I've had a not as long as history as some other people. But I definitely think it's one of those tools that definitely captivated me from a tech perspective really, really early on.
Cool. So as soon as you kind of heard about it, you looked into it, and were you instantly captivated and the potential of what this could do for society?
Well, it was. I think by the time I got really interested in it, I tried a bunch of different things. So I'd done a little bit of investing. I tried doing a bit of trading. I'd started my first and second business. And I think by the time it really clicked, I had experienced a lot of those inefficiencies. So, dealing with banking, dealing with mortgages, begging HSBC here in the UK to give me a bank account for my property business. Like, why do you need one? I was like, well, because I have to collect rent from somewhere and I don't want it in my own name for tax purposes. And they sort of like didn't get it. And the more I dug into it from an investment perspective, a liquidity perspective, then also the technical side, there was kind of always something else to learn. And this is, from 2017 to now, and the market's grown, 100 times since then. I'm still always learning something new, whether it's on Bitcoin specifically or some of the other altcoins as well. Being an exchange, we have to be a little bit more agnostic, but Bitcoin is still the OG. It's still the brand. And it's obviously the most secure and the most decentralized one out there. So it will be pretty much unbeaten, I think, in our lifetimes anyway.
Yep, I definitely agree with you on that. So why did you decide to start Coinpass, and what are your goals with Coinpass?
Yeah, really, really cool. So it was around that kind of 2017 time. I was consulting for a very large hedge fund here in London called SoftBank, the Vision Fund, and they buy into like Uber and WeWork, that kind of stuff. And I was like their 11th employee. There was like no one in this big, huge office in the middle of Mayfair, and they had £100 billion to spend, and it was just absolute madness. Like, we were in and out every other day. There was about 10 staff starting every single week. I was given literally a blank check to retrofit and upgrade all of their cybersecurity tech. And then about halfway through my contract, they go, "Can you expand this to California, Japan, and 4 other offices?" I'm like, why not? And it was just this thought of they do things, big. There was no small deals, there was no small things. And at the same time, I was trying to upgrade my portfolio. I was trying to get more into crypto. I was trying to accumulate whatever I could in tax efficient ways as well, which are really interesting. And then when a few of my colleagues and now my co-founders came to me and said, we want to take a big position in Bitcoin. How do we do that in pound sterling? And, Coinbase had been around in the UK since about 2015, 2016, but they'd turned off and on their banks so many times that it was just easier to use US dollars and euro. So that was the answer. You've got to use euro, you've got to use USD. And they didn't want any FX exposure. These are serious guys. And I said, well, I had this entrepreneurial spirit. I was very drunk on the whole, the experience, my day job that I was doing. And I said, let's start our own one. Why not? Let's get a bank account. Let's get some liquidity. Let's do some startup funding of our own money. And we basically set out to sell 1 Bitcoin to 1 person. That was the goal. We launched in the middle of a bear market, and everyone said, "You guys are absolutely nuts." And it continued to dip, and people continued to buy the dip. And by our 4th month, we were in profit and revenue, which is just unheard of for a fintech startup and unheard of for a crypto startup. And we just kind of scaled it up from there. We had an insane 2019, started taking on business accounts. 2020, when the world caught on fire, we thought we were going to have to contract, and we ended up having to expand just to keep up. And now this year, we're launching our 2nd and 3rd platform and starting to go a bit more global with the brand into, say, hopefully Turkey, Asia, and eventually Australia. And so the goal is to be 100 countries, 100 tradable assets, but do it in a safe, secure, and regulated way, so people don't have to worry about if their banks are going to be closed down.
Very cool. Yeah. I'm definitely familiar with Coinbase, and I know their regular website, Coinbase.com, not Coinbase Pro, but their regular Coinbase charges pretty insane amount of fees. And
that's their biggest earner. You'd think the Pro platform would have way more volume, but they make more money on the .com than the Pro. And I only know this because I've sat across the poker table from their head of liquidity in London. Bit of a loose player, but shared probably more information than you should have. But it's designed inherently to be nice and easy and nice and quick. And the way that the fees are scaled is you pay a lot more when you're paying 50 quid opposed to doing, say, 1 to 2,000. So that's where the fees get a bit cheaper, but the majority of their traffic is in that kind of 50 to 250 quid zone.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's the general population isn't buying too much Bitcoin. They're buying in terms of sats, I suppose. What makes Coinpass, I guess, more superior to other exchanges in your opinion, especially like an exchange like Coinbase?
Yeah, for sure. So it's a really good question. I think it's something we've, pivoted on several times. Our product has always been, fiat on, fiat off, and now obviously trading now as well. And trading isn't for everyone. How we try to be different is basically talk directly to our users and see exactly what they want and cater to the people that want to get in and want to get out. But they've gone through the hurdles and they've had that pain of, I can only do 1,000 at a time. And the reason those compliance levels are there or limits are there is purely risk exposure. It's not because of the bank. It's not because of tax. It's not because of the government. It's purely the exchange doesn't want you taking funds off the platform because it's better for them. So we decided to turn that on its head and kind of go a bit of a YOLO all in and say, well, if our users want to take funds off our platform, that's cool, because I don't want to be the one handcuffing people just to use our platform. There are plenty of exchanges out there, and there will be plenty more. The market's still very small. But we wanted to do it differently because you can't regulate cryptocurrency as a technology. You can't regulate, Bitcoin as a, even on a protocol level. But the endpoints, the gateways like our platforms, that's who will be regulated. So when we set up in late 2017, early 2018, the regulation in the UK was this: Bitcoin and cryptocurrency are exactly the same thing. That's it. Through 2019, they learned about this thing called Ethereum. They go, oh, well, there's exchange tokens and utility tokens, and everything else is a security. And now they're starting to get into stable tokens a little bit, but back then it was 0 or nothing. So we took the approach from our COO, who's our co-founder, and he ran a FX mini prime here in London. So we're like, well, let's pretend like we're a mini prime FX broker and just go with that kind of framework, because that's the framework they're most likely to adopt. And if we're wrong, then we're about 80% of the way there anyway. So we started off with it's not heavy compliance by all means. We're not like asking for people's favorite color and the length of their inseam, but we're doing it in a more secure way, so we don't have to impose limits into anyone. A new client can deposit 100 grand on our platform on day one. You can liquidate and get off 500 ETH back to your bank account in about 2 hours. So we wanted to take the approach of getting off and getting into the market as quickly and as clean as possible, having a really, really high touch, professional layer of support. We have a phone number on our website. People can call us if they want to. And we always stand behind our product. It doesn't work 100% of the time. I don't think anyone's does 100% of the time. Not Coinbase, not Kraken, not Binance. Everyone's got their problems. But whenever there is a problem, we're right there holding our users' hands to ensure they get a great service and a great experience. And that's how we want to be different.
For sure. That makes sense. Yeah, it's really interesting to watch how this is playing out with regulation for sure. Here in the U.S., the SEC chair recently spoke, and he actually knows a lot about crypto.
Which is a really good thing. You need some educated people, having those conversations instead of like the what was the cringy one last year? It was the Zuckerberg WhatsApp in commerce. That was just the most cringy thing I've ever watched. Like, if I send this text, I'll get an ad. No, it doesn't work that way. But the guy that is doing the SEC chair now, he definitely knows what he's talking about. I think it's a good thing to have a more educated conversation at that level, which is good.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see how it plays out, because he seemed to be open to the idea that Bitcoin may be a commodity. It may not be a security, and all these other tokens may be a security because there's a team behind them, and like by definition, if there's a team behind them and you're investing in that team, it's a security. So after listening to him, it really kind of made me more bullish on Bitcoin and not so much altcoins, to be honest. So I kind of diversified a little bit away from altcoins after listening.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Over time, I'm getting a little bit more heavier on Bitcoin.
And I think this is probably the thing that I like the most. I think that I've learned about not just the ecosystem, but the people that want to join the ecosystem. They started wanting to learn about Bitcoin because it's brand new, and what they end up coming out with it is this whole other perspective on money. The education between money and currency and commodities, and how the existing banking system works. And a lot of people are horrified. They just didn't know that this kind of robbery was happening literally in plain sight. And Bitcoin levels the playing field. And I like that you say, could it be a commodity or a reserve currency or something like that? I think it really can be. It's one of those things that's not behind a government. It's not behind a central bank. It's completely transparent. All the miners are there. All the data is there. The on-chain analytic data that comes out of the on-chain is redonkulous. And there's a lot of really good, clean, efficient data that comes out of that usually sometimes predicts price. Or can show a lot of bullish traffic happening. When the OTC desks wake up in the morning, you can see them moving stuff in and out of the hot wallets, and you see what kind of day it's going to be. And no other asset class or other market in the world can do that. And I think the more connections that we have into Bitcoin, so US dollar, euro, pound, whatever, central bank currencies, which we might talk about a little later as well. But then you start putting like oil contracts, gold contracts, wheat, orange juice, all that stuff that are usually settled in US dollars anyway, which is a big problem right now with the amount of dollars they've been printing in the last 12 months. You make that reserve currency something like Bitcoin, which, over time, the volatility it'll level out eventually. But when it's not controlled by a central party, that makes it a very, very good reserve currency.
That's what I tell people, that, difference with Bitcoin is it's already doing what it's supposed to do. It's super decentralized, unstoppable. It's made to be the base layer for our new financial system, and I love it. So do you personally hold Bitcoin, and do you see it as a good investment?
So I do hold Bitcoin, definitely. I can't give any financial advice ever, so I always put the hashtag not financial advice.
Not financial advice.
Is it a good investment? I think at the moment where we are in the world, where we are in cycles, I think if people don't have some exposure to Bitcoin, I think that's a risk. So whether it's 0.5% of your portfolio or 1% of your portfolio, or maybe you don't have a portfolio at all, it's worth looking into to have some exposure to. It depends how deep you want to go. Is it new? Yes. Is it volatile? Yes. But I believe it's a gateway to, we're investing in an emerging market as well as an emerging technology. and it's still brand new. And what I see from the space on a technological side, as soon as we, really nail down, on the security side, what a token and a tokenization can do, that's where the hockey stick will take off. That's where the concept of, proper, not just fractionalized shares, which is just a derivative product, but proper, token fractionalization of your local coffee shop, of your house, of an NFT could be a motorcycle that you sell that's got its entire history attached to it. That level of tech tied into real world, that's where the hockey stick will come from, and it's going to take time. There is going to be regs that's going to have to happen, but when that does happen, it doesn't really matter what blockchain we sit on. The fact that the value is transmittable and self-sovereign, I think that's the most important thing, and that's what Bitcoin is kind of given to everybody.
Do you see in the future? Do you see a future where a lot of these use cases that you mentioned are done on top of Bitcoin on a layer 2, and that's the preferred method, or do you see cross chain as being a helpful way of going about it in terms of other altcoins fulfilling use cases such as DeFi and NFTs and whatnot?
So it depends. And a friend of mine has his default answer for absolutely everything. Yes, Kevin, I'm talking about you. It kind of depends on what the use case is. I think when it comes to something around storing any kind of value or backing any kind of currency, like the whole CBDC thing and the whole El Salvador thing, I think the potentially to backstop real value and actually in a deflationary way can be a really good thing. But then when you're trying to build, a smart contract on top of this and cross-chain this and lock the value here, it becomes too complicated for the regular user to understand, let alone the product it's supposed to be backing. So I think we'll have, there'll still be thousands of different chains out there for different things. There will be the go-to for government, for enterprise, for payments, for whatever. And we'll have the same kind of wars we have now. It's Visa versus MasterCard versus this versus neobanks. They all work pretty much on the same rails, but they are all completely different companies, completely different products. And I think we'll see the same thing with crypto, but I think because we're starting off in a highly technical state, is that there's more chance for those chains to be cross dataing, etc. in the future. So I don't think they'll all be on Bitcoin. I think some of them will tie in with it or reference a specific cold wallet that holds X amount in there, and that's your network value. But you still get all your layer 2s or your other DeFi things, etc., or wrapping, which we've seen quite popular in the DeFi space as well.
It's interesting to see this all playing out because this is a brand new piece of tech. Many use cases being done on this technology, and it's interesting to see how it's going to play out because it's kind of the Wild West. It's like a big. I say Ethereum's kind of like a test net. All these use cases are being tested out, and eventually, things are being added to Bitcoin layer 2, like stacks and Lightning Network, and so it's really cool to see how it's all going to play out. There's a lot of people that are only Bitcoin, everything will be done on Bitcoin, everything else is a scam. The maximalists, and then you have the people who are even anti-Bitcoin and pro-Ethereum. So what's your take on those type of people? You think Bitcoin maximalism is good for the movement, or do you think it's toxic and those people need to chill out?
No, I think it's completely toxic and people need to take a chill. I mean, there's if you don't like a coin or don't like a movie, then just don't go see that movie. There's no reason to have this tribalism about it. We are an exceptionally small group on the absolute bleeding edge of new financial tech. There's only 100 million users in the entire world even looking at this stuff. I mean, all I see in the news every day is crypto because that's my niche. That's where I sit. I go on the news from sitting in front of the TV and it happens to be on. I don't really watch mass media that much. And when I don't hear about it, it's like, what are these people missing? We are still such an exceptionally tiny group, and the whole maximalist toxic culture doesn't really happen. It doesn't help anyone bring anyone in. Crypto still, to this day, 12 years on, has an image problem, and it's not going to bring in the bigger money to fill everyone's bags to go to the moon. It's not going to encourage the new money to come in that think they can't afford a Bitcoin, because they don't understand it goes down to 8 decimal places, or Ethereum goes down to 18 decimal places. I have no idea why they did that. But that's how they end up in the proper shit tokens. They end up in Safe Moon and the whatever the Rocket one and the Shiba Inu stuff. And you know, the reason Doge came around was to make it fun and that you could have billions of the things to send around and actually learn about wallets. And it achieved that really well, but then some people took it too seriously, and now we have Elon shooting off every other week. So I don't have a problem with Doge specifically because it's supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be a joke, but now it's kind of gotten a bit out of hand. But when we have this, tribalism, it's not encouraging anyone new to come into the space because they come in, they put in $500, and then tomorrow it's gone because they weren't educated enough. And there's still this people are hoarding knowledge and creating way too much noise that needs to be there. We need to be an open, welcoming community and an open, welcoming, emerging asset class to get more people here because that's what the network needs. It needs more people.
Yeah, I agree. We definitely need to be welcoming. We definitely need to all get along. And, I do think the maximalists, cyber hornets, whatever you want to call them, definitely do have a point. They do have a point in terms that, Bitcoin is superior base layer money, and it does have huge potential for the future. So I do understand, why they're big proponents, but at the same time, they do have to be welcoming.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
there's being passionate about something, and then there's just being kind of blind to any other argument. And I like this because we can have a really educated discussion. We don't have to punch each other in the face at the end of it, and have that toxicity there. We can talk, I've heard some really, really intelligent people. A lot of it goes over my head when we start talking about the dev side of it. But, some of the stuff, Ethereum v Polkadot v Cardano, really smart guys with some really visionary ideas and how they conflict. But they're talking about, solving issues and pros and cons on a theoretical level and having an educated debate. And that fills the room with smart people. And the only way you get smarter at what you do, you go to a room with people smarter than you. And in crypto, there are all smart people in crypto. So why do we have to be so negative about our beliefs and about our passions? It's Formula One. If you like Vettel and that person likes Lewis Hamilton, no one's going toxic over it and punching each other. They're there to watch a race and enjoy it because it's a community event. We should all be more about pushing it forward rather than holding each other back.
Yeah, I agree. And there are a lot of smart people in the space, and a lot of them are, developing on other chains. And, we want those people, in the community. We don't want to shut them out. So, I definitely agree with that. So, but yeah, moving on. Do you think the bull run is over? Or you think we're still on the way up? Where do you think we're on a super cycle, as Dan Hill would say?
It depends how far is zoomed in or out you go. I mean, I was talking with one of my clients yesterday, and he's like, "Oh, we saw a crash today," and I said, "Dude, it's $400. Just like calm it down a little bit. Look at the last 10 days. Are we still in a bull run? I like to think we're in a bit of a sideways movement now. I knew we would get to about 60K this year. I don't think anyone expected it to happen in April. That was just kind of pure madness. A lot of my trading pot, not my accumulation hodl pot. I mean, I closed most of my longs around the 50K mark, which probably makes me look like a wuss. But I thought we'd get to the 60K mark maybe now, July time. And I think that would have been it still would have been pretty aggressive looking on the chart, but I don't think we would have pulled back as much. And, same as before, the education of, spot trading is boring and you need leverage in order to make money. That's for a lot of the cheaper money that went into the market saying I need 10, 15, 50x in order to make my returns. All of the 50% of that leverage disappeared in like 4 days when we saw that huge. It was like it was like a 9,000 pound dollar candle in like a day or two, and it really hurt the market. Hurt its image. A lot of people lost some money. People try to recoup by doubling down, try to catch the knife on the way down, as I call it, or diverse into even more volatile shit tokens. So that period of going really, really high, really, really quick, a lot of with all the alternate doges coming out, kind of did nothing. It kind of we tried to prop the bubble up by putting more stuff into it. If we went up a bit slower and a bit more trendy, I think we would still be in peak bull run. We've had a pullback now, and we're a little bit sideways. I don't think the bull run's over. I think we're just kind of pumping the brakes a little bit and taking some time. There's still plenty of money in the space moving around, and we can see that on chain. our business has been busier than ever, both on ramping and off ramping. And that's not even the trading side. So I still think there's a lot of interest there. I think the people that were here in 2019 and 2020 are still accumulating. And I think if we get to a nice solid support and, we get rid of the China FUD and, someone deletes Elon's account and we get a nice support that doesn't get broken again, then I think we can resume a bull run. But I think it's going to be a bit more of a safer one next time. I think it's going to be a bit more gradual and not as aggressive.
I would agree with you on that. My thinking is that over time, the volatility will decrease as the market matures and more money enters the market. And yeah, I think we'll have another bull run. I mean, if you zoom out, it's going to go up in the long run. People are complaining about the drop, but it's still up, 3-4x.
I saw a report from, I think it was JP Morgan. It wasn't Goldman. No, it was a JP Morgan report. And they're saying basically that the volatility of the crypto market as a whole, not just Bitcoin, has actually been decreasing by 15 to 20% since 2017 over certain cyclic runs. And that's where they're showing more interest now. Is like, well, we used to be insane volatility here at the 20K mark. And then we were at kind of medium volatility, and now we're actually tapering off again. And they're seeing that as a decreasing trend. So the more money that comes into the market, the more connections we make into newer markets, and we get a bit more regulation certainty there as well. They're seeing that as a key indicator of a key time to enter the market, which is why there's these big bank innovation teams that are now hunting for either startups or hunting for tech that they can implement to their platforms. JP Morgan have announced they're going to upgrade their proof of concept innovation from 20 POCs a year to 75 POCs a year. And these could be anything from card payments to trading to crypto to token to custody. It could be any sort of tech. They will, increase their R&D spend to work with more startups to see what's out there, what they can bring into any number of the hundreds of businesses that JP Morgan is involved in. So they are looking hard for good tech. They are looking hard on how they can leverage it, even more than their own core projects. So the more the volatility decreases, the more certainty there is. It's going to be an absolute flood when the first big player comes in.
I agree. Do you think dollar cost averaging into the market is the best strategy in terms of investing, or what do you personally do? Do you buy on red days and that's about it, or do you try to time it? Or
So yeah, I think it definitely depends on what sort of person you are. There are some people that are a bit more active with their money. That's their hobby. That's their passion. They know what their risk is. They're very money conscious, etc. They have a good relationship with money, and they may go for red days or 3 down bars. I'll buy it, etc., etc. Myself, I'm a bit more of a traditional investor, if that is even still a word. So dollar cost averaging to me is pretty similar. Putting money into your 401k in the US or your SIP pension over here in the UK, and you're accumulating over a long period of time. Now, and obviously in stock investing, you might be aiming for yield, you may be aiming for accumulation, you may be looking for for dividend payouts, etc. And I treat kind of Bitcoin no differently. Is that I'm accumulating now to offset larger taxes in the future because we have capital gains and etc. etc. But if Bitcoin gets to a point where it's in 6 figures and etc., and then I can either generate a yield from it or I can pull loans out against it, then I never have to worry about the capital gain side of it. If my intention is to continue to accumulate daily, weekly, monthly, etc., I'm not really worried about the future capital gains implications because I'm going to be doing more stuff with my crypto at later points in the market. So I think dollar cost averaging is a safe bet to keep the stress out. So you're not looking at charts every day. You just have a standing order. It fires off in your bank account every day or once a week. Irons out your volatility. You catch the majority of the dips. You're not going to get one on the intraday or on the hourly chart. But I've seen even some really, really big whales do exactly the same thing. We've got one guy, he's an expat, but he lives on the other side of the world, but all of his finances are here in the UK, and he's dollar cost averaging $5,000 a month. That's his strategy because he's been doing it for like 30 years in his ISA and his SIP and all these other kind of ways in a tax effective way. It's just very natural to accumulate in that sort of way. So I recommend it to new users. Then if you want to get a bit more involved, you can look at trading and buying dips and etc. And then with any profits you can shave off, you can then go and kind of dabble and play in other stuff that interests you, whether it's DeFi, Ethereum, etc., etc. Just don't go beyond the top 20 unless you really want to experience the wild ride, is what I say. Stay within the top 20 if you want to look at alts.
Oh yeah, yeah, I agree. It's definitely the stress-free way of going about it.
Yeah, it's like, you don't really look like you're 50 when you're 22.
Exactly. I think Bitcoin has effectively been de-risked as of recently. I mean, the risk is super small in my opinion. I don't think it's going anywhere. So it's a good sure thing to dollar cost average.
I think it's a good point for the risk. I think there's inherently risk with everything. No
There
matter
is,
if
yeah.
you're leaving your money savings in the bank, that's a risk at the moment. It's about 4%. So it's 4% risk just sitting there doing nothing. And it's not that secure considering how much a bank will
Losing
leverage your money.
value.
They'll leverage it 9 to 1, more than you can get on some trading platforms. So, the risk is you get left behind. The risk is you lose opportunity. And the risk is you weren't going to do anything with that money in the first place. So you may as well do something active with it. Being in the market is easier than trying to time the market. Oh, I'll wait for the next dip. Oh, now it's 40 grand. I'm out, And I think that's true kind of everything. There's risk going out on the bus, going to work. So you have to just weigh it up. And I encourage everyone to just take it slow. We're still early. If you're going to do it for the next 5 years, just take your time and learn. Watch podcasts like this and learn.
I agree. Definitely keep learning and gain conviction, and that way you're not paper-handed, right? Selling at the bottom. So, do you think more companies are going to start investing and converting their fiat reserves into Bitcoin and basically following suit of big companies like Tesla and MicroStrategy, who purchased $1 billion worth? Do you think there's going to be a lot more bigger money funneling in soon? And if so, who do you see? What kind of companies do you see coming into the network next and purchasing Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think they have to at this stage. I think everyone thought Michael Saylor was absolutely nuts when he was still buying at like the 40 and 50k levels, and it's very easy to poke fun at him on the headlines now that we're down at the 40k mark. But he was raising debt like no one's tomorrow, and everyone was buying in on it because that's that was like Wall Street's hedge, is that they can have Bitcoin exposure with a paper instrument, without having to do any of the custody and stuff. And if this guy fails, then guess what? There's still a hell of a lot of assets backing up these bonds. So it was actually like a dream deal for them. And I think if he went out now and asked for like another 100 million, he'd get it easily. And I'd never heard of MicroStrategy before it came out the headlines that these guys are buying up in massive droves. And they did it with public order books. They didn't use OTC desks. That was the mental bit. I went, that's cool. Not only is that cool, that's completely gangster. They did it in front of everyone's eyes and no one saw it, which I think is awesome. But for other companies, it's definitely the cash-rich ones. So if you want to, who are the ones that hold the most cash? Facebook and Apple.
Yeah.
I think, Zuck's a techno freak like the rest of us. They're sitting on more cash than Greece. If they wanted to do anything with their stable token and really get it off the ground and put, quids in and really be involved, I think it makes perfect sense for them to start accumulating. If they're not accumulating now, I'd be surprised. I think they have to be doing something in the background, maybe just so Zuck can stick it to the Winklevoss brothers again. But Apple's play is that they've always been late to the show with some of their tech adoption, which is why I say an iPhone is like a 3-year-old Android. Is that they came up with their own the payment wallets and all the NFC stuff, and then they're doing their payments card. They don't have them in the UK, but they have the Apple Card in the US, right? And the next
Apple
evolution of that card and doing payments and cross border and keeping it smart and clean, all that kind of stuff, is going to be some sort of asset backed one or some sort of crypto one. So it makes sense for them to have either their own token, or if they want to make it really feasible and give it value, they'll back it with something like crypto or Bitcoin. It's in scarcity, it's going up, it's got a 12-year track record. So why wouldn't they? Even if it was just an experiment for them, they've got more cash to burn. They're a $1 trillion company. It's going to do absolutely no harm for them to put a couple of million on their balance sheet and to start off. But it's just when it becomes public, I think that's when the snow starts rolling down the hill and becomes a snowball. So I think it'll be one of the big ones.
Definitely.
It could be another random unknown tech company we don't know about. But I don't see like a hedge fund or an asset manager breaking news by saying they're holding Bitcoin, because they're just going to be investing into businesses. I think it's going to be one of those big players that announce it next, like another Tesla or another FANG, etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really exciting to see how it's going to play out. Michael Saylor explains it really well. There's all these corporations who have tons and tons of fiat reserves just sitting there doing nothing,
Yeah, and
and
not
it's really
acquiring, not
losing
trading.
value.
Yeah, and I think one of those, like Starbucks, for instance, everyone blows their mind when they realize they're more of a trading company than a coffee company. If they have so much data of when money goes in, when they have to deliver coffee, they can just control the coffee futures market. They made more money off trading last year than they did off selling coffee. They're a tech company that trades now, and they just have heaps and heaps of futures data that no one else has, and don't pay much tax on it, which is, maybe Starbucks. Who knows?
Do you think the Lightning Network is going to be more widely adopted in the future? And do you think it's going to allow Bitcoin to not only be a store of value, but a medium of exchange, and just be adopted in more places?
So I think it has the ability to. I'm definitely not a Lightning Network expert. I mean, I understand the premise of it. I still think the execution of it and how it's explained is still far too technical for any normal person to understand. The whole opening channels, closing channels, invoicing, etc. I think people can get it, but they'll spend and waste a lot of money trying it and not really fully understanding it. How they want to try and execute it in El Salvador, for instance, I think is a little bit scary, because it's still quite centralized. But I think for the ones that want to make it work, and I think we get that really, really crisp UI, the ability to have your private key as a retina or as a fingerprint or something like that. That's just user experience, and I think if we can wrap it a bit better and get the the completion rate and the error correction and all that kind of stuff much higher, then I think it does have a real chance. For those, as we call them, unbanked. It's one of the use cases for nearly everything, I suppose. For those ones to truly be able to earn, get those donations, get paid, all of those kind of things, it does just work. But it still needs a long way to go for it to be widely adopted and widely used, I think. And at the moment, people just want to buy and hold Bitcoin for the most part. So I think if a specific payment token is backed by Bitcoin, I think that gives this payment one a lot more utility and a lot more adoption. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, it's really exciting because the Lightning Network is really being developed, and a lot of innovations being done on the Lightning Network. There's a wallet that I checked out the other day called Moon Wallet, MUUN, and it makes it super, super easy. You download an app, and there's no intermediary. There's no you have custody of your funds the entire time, and it's all seamless. And like you were saying, it used to be kind of difficult with opening a channel and understanding how that all works, but it makes it literally click of a button, you click send and receive, and it's super, super easy. So I'm really bullish on Lightning Network myself.
Very cool. No, it's probably just experience. I kind of stick to the some of the basic ones. We have really talented developers in our team. They tell me what I need to know, and then I kind of doze off with the rest of it. But no, I haven't experimented with enough of it. But there's a couple of guys, good friends of mine, that are wailing about it all the time. So I'll give the Moon Wallet a have a look.
What's going on in El Salvador as well? You mentioned that they're making it legal tender there, and it's really cool to see. I go online, I see videos of people going to a grocery store and scanning their phone and buying their groceries and having instant and fee-free transactions. Do you think more countries are going to be adopting a Bitcoin standard, so to say, and using the Lightning Network to use transactions like that? You think there's going to be other smaller countries or bigger countries that go on both as well?
Yeah, I definitely think there will be. I mean, it's kind of more of a matter of when instead of if now. I think we've all wanted that to happen for a long time. I think there's been a lot of experimentation with it, even with the whole Bitcoin Cash side of it, with Nano and some of the other ones that have tried to do the whole payments level on a different way. But El Salvador's really come out of the blocks, trying to really push this forward. And I think if they get it right, and I want to really impress on them and get it right and make it work without any corruption, without keys missing, without all that kind of stuff that is it just going to go tits up and crypto goes missing? It has every ability for it to go really, really right and be really successful, and it will literally, they'll be first. If you watch the movie Margin Call, you can either You can be smart, you can cheat, or you can be first. It's far easier to be first, and El Salvador's doing that. It looks like Paraguay is going to follow their lead, and get on it as well. So now you might have two countries in Latin America on the same standard, which is a really, really exciting concept when you start to have multiple countries on a Bitcoin backing as well as a Lightning Network potential as well. So these cross-border payments between these countries now just got just not even the 21st century anymore. They're ahead of some first world countries in terms of their payments and remittances. So I really want it to work. I really want it to go well. I really hope that I'm cock up. I really hope it doesn't result in a whole lot of lost funds and even any other more poverty or any other wars and stuff that goes on. I really want it to have every single success that it has potential for.
Yeah, me too. And you mentioned El Salvador and there being some centralization issues, and hopefully, you're able to onboard. The thing is you have to onboard people in a in an easy manner, and a lot of times centralization helps with that. So hopefully we can have a little centralization and get you on board, and then learn how to self-custody, do it yourself.
If there's a way to migrate funds later or migrate wallets later or something like that, which I'm sure is completely doable.
Yeah.
I think it was just one article I read about the company that was either building the solution and the way they were using either a fork of it or the way that it was implemented, the way they're doing the custody of it. It seemed more centralized than it was supposed to be. So, it's stepping stones, right? They get it right. It does really well. A lot of people have smartphones now, which is great. There are 3 smartphones for every person on Earth. So hopefully there is enough out there to get it done right. And let's hope that there's a bright future there and it doesn't just kind of fall and collapse, because that could be one of the things that it's not going to be crypto's downfall. I think crypto's going to be here a long time. It just depends on how fast we get there or how slow we get there.
Yeah. So do you see a future where, Bitcoin's kind of coming in as a gold 2.0 narrative, a superior store of value to gold? Do you see a future where Bitcoin not only becomes a store of value, but becomes a money and in a way competes with fiat money? And do you think fiat money and Bitcoin is going to coexist? Or do you think eventually, fiat money will all inevitably become hyperinflated by corruption, and the only incorruptible money, Bitcoin, remains? Or how do you see that playing out in terms of governments and fiat?
We just need to look at history. There's been 600 fiat currencies, and 98% of them failed, and the only ones that haven't failed are still going, and that's the US dollar, the pound, and the euro. Average fiat currency lasts somewhere between 60 and 70 years. The US dollar in its current form is 60 years old. Pound in its current format is 300 years old. Both of them have lost 99.9% of their value over those time periods as well. So the US is just like floating at the moment. They want to remove the debt ceiling and just print their way to the moon. I mean, they're going to make a pyramid of $1 notes and walk to the moon at this stage. Yep. It's just ridiculous. Bitcoin versus fiat. Fiat it may not die, but it will be replaced with a cashless format. That cashless format will be some sort of tokenized, CBDC or whatever it's called. If they actually go through and call it Bitcoin, I may have to leave Britain, because that's just embarrassing. Call it like DGBP or something like that, or call it crypto GBP, or just anything but Bitcoin, because it sounds like an ICO from 2016. I think fiat, as we know it, will be replaced with a better digital variant. Will it curb, money laundering and etc.? Maybe, maybe not. Will it curb cash in hand sales? No, because if we can still do wallet to wallet transfers, that's still cash in hand. It's just not linked to a sale or an invoice. Will it, keep the government politicians in check? I believe it will, because I think right now what they don't know is how many of these pounds are actually in existence. How many US dollars are actually in existence? And the problem with the banking system,
supply is not auditable.
It's not auditable. Yeah, you've got a serial number, but how many of them are destroyed and how many of them are not? You've got the digital copy, which is in the banking system, which can be leveraged at 10 to 1 per bank. So you actually don't know how many, number of digital ones there are, versus the ones you're printing every year. You're like, well, we need to print this many of them because we're assuming 20% get lost and burned and damaged, and we're assuming this many come back. So we need to make up the difference. Oh, and we're going to print an extra 3 trillion this year as well. So they kind of don't even have an idea between the digital copy and the physical format, which is the source of truth. And with banks able to do this freely, however they like, and charge people fees on overdrafts for money they don't have, that's just wacky tobacco. Yeah. All of those kind of issues go away when you use some sort of tokenized digital version. So I think it'll clean up a lot of things. I think it's going to be a very difficult path to do a full conversion, and it's going to be one of those kind of 5-10 year kind of plans. But I think Bitcoin will complement all of those. If they want to take a large stash of Bitcoin to prop it up and actually make it worth something, like the gold standard we used to have, it can be something like that. We're obviously going to have CBDC pairs or central bank pairs for multiple currencies, and whoever wants to create those liquidity pools, more connections into Bitcoin makes Bitcoin a reserve currency. But it might be the Chinese that beat everyone to it. They've been experimenting with their digital yuan now for 7 years. They've got integrations into WeChat, and WeChat's used for nearly everything in China. So they've got the best head start from everyone. Sweden ain't that far behind. Sweden is 85% digital payments. And parts of Europe are all, there are some people that will shop on certain websites because it supports their chosen digital wallet. It may be like AdPay or Pandora or whatever it's going to be. But they'll use those payment wallet apps over traditional banking or traditional cards because they're just better. So I think it's going to be a tokenization play. There's going to be lots of connections, but again, it's going to be down to UI experience. Who has the best experience to deliver, this new solution for money? But ultimately, I think fiat will die as we know it. It'll be replaced with something better, but we kind of won't know it's replaced if you believe the media headline kind of stuff.
Like you were saying, the amount of printing, that's going on worldwide is pretty insane. And, in the US, the M2 money supply has gone up 35-40% in the last year.
Just the year.
So it's insane.
Yeah. And I don't pretend to be an economist. I mean, I'm very basic when it comes to those kind of things, but you only need to stand back and have a look at the last 10 years. I mean, anyone who's got any money in their pocket or their bank account, you can remember what something was worth 10 years ago. I can remember when I used to go down to the shops when I was a kid and I got given $1 or $1, and I could buy a bottle of Coke and a bag of chips, and I could walk home and blah 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 and have that. You can't even get the small little value pack thing that comes with a sandwich for £1 anymore. Bottle of Coke
and prices should be going down because of technological innovation and whatnot.
Technological innovation, all that kind of stuff. There's still potatoes. We're making a lot of potatoes, but the size of it goes down. So you've got a buying power decreasing. You've got the cost of goods and services and everything that goes up with inflation. This magical thing that happens in the background that's not real, and it's all down to kind of money printing and leverage and debt. So I think it'll be like one of those, the big reset, which isn't going to be like a debt bubble, it'll be a technological bubble. But I think in our lifetimes, it'll be interesting to see it, and I've lived through it. And our kids are going to be like, really? You used to give money to each other by hand? That's unheard of,
Yeah. Yeah, with the CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, they're still going to be centrally controlled, able to be inflated to no end, and they're also able to be, surveyed even more than, cash. Does that concern you at all? Are you concerned about CBDCs, allowing for too much government control in the future?
Yeah, I think it's one of those it depends ones, and I think because it's such a, it's kind of like DeFi. It's such a new concept that's been experimented with. You say, yes, are they going to be 100% centralized? Well, they don't have to be. If every single central bank is dealing with each other's currencies, then really that is a decentralized system. And who's holding the key to, change the code and upgrade it, etc. It's going to be completely visible to anyone who can read a smart contract. So by them printing more, we're going to know about it. It's not going to be this, there's a report that was released and it's in the back archive of some website that you don't even know how to navigate. You'll be able to look at the smart contract and see what the active supply is. And we're going to see
Yeah.
how that's proven or what wallets are holding what. Is there a surveillance aspect to it? Yes, I think there will be, but to what end and what level it goes down to. As long as they don't start tracking stuff on a basket level, like I spend £14.20 at the shop, they just see a transaction. That might be fine. But as soon as they can see the items that I bought in my cart, that's where you have a problem. And I think which agencies have access to those kind of keys. So it might be like, say, a permissioned style blockchain. So, low level key, they can see a wallet address randomized and they can see what's in it. A layer 2 key may have some sort of basic level access to a KYC data or a tag saying it's a male that lives in London or something like that. Then you kind of go up the chain, and only your police that have proper warrants are going to be able to see the full scale of what's in there. So I'm all for protecting people. I'm all for digital privacy, definitely. But I think what's the bigger opportunity with CBDCs is to kind of eliminate money laundering risk and to eliminate the potential abuse of banking system inflation. And I think that's kind of what they're aiming for. It's all of the other things straight away. But it can be used in a nefarious way. Like, yeah, so can everything. You can use a photo frame to kill someone over the head if you really tried hard enough. So there's always going to be a to and fro. But I think they need to focus on the positive stuff first, and then plan to mitigate the other ideas as they kind of crop up.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully CBDCs aren't too, centralized and corrupt.
Yeah, as long as history doesn't repeat itself, then I agree. We can only hope it doesn't go that way, but we won't know until one of them finally launched and we actually see what happens.
Yeah. Well, to close out here, you and I are both big proponents of Bitcoin. What do you recommend others do in order to, help support the network, help support the growth, and kind of teach people and get the word out? What are some recommendations you got for
talk about Bitcoin to everyone, even if they think you're crazy, especially over Thanksgiving and holidays? No, I think it's always bring positivity to it. I think everyone needs to do that in every aspect of their life. It doesn't matter how stressed you are and what else is going on. It takes less muscles to smile than it does to frown. And I think that's the same with crypto and Bitcoin. It's not all bad. It's not all memes. There is a serious side to it. There are some really smart people playing with this stuff. And it's almost a little bit of a lightning rod for educating yourself. I didn't know anything about economics when I started into Bitcoin. I didn't know the difference between money and currency when I started a Bitcoin. And I had been working, 15 years of my life through casinos, data centers, hedge funds, etc. And I still didn't know the difference.
You took the orange pill.
Yeah, the orange pill, exactly, the same thing. And, it really changed my life in terms of my relationship to money. And I think that's where a lot of people can get a lot of positivity out of it. Because now I tend to spend less and invest more, not save. We don't save. Is all of that into crypto? No, not all of it's into crypto. Some of that goes into personal development, so educating myself. Some of that goes into, proper outdoor time, actually seeing parts of the world or parts of London I haven't seen before, going for a meal. That stuff is important because you're investing in not just, something monetary. You're investing in yourself, which I think is super important and is underrated a lot. It can be the difference between affording a gym membership and not. Some people are really happy to buy a round of drinks, but they're not really capable of looking after themselves month to month. So it's taught me more things about myself and more things about finance than I ever thought it could, because it put me in a room with people that are way smarter than me. And that's what I think crypto can do for literally anyone willing to listen.
Where can people find more about you and your company Coinpass?
Yeah, sure. So obviously very, very, very simple, coinpass.com. Didn't want to settle with a .co.uk domain. So we're coinpass.com. You can find me on Twitter, Jeff_Coinpass, or just look us up on LinkedIn as well. Always happy to reach out, have a convo, chat, tweet, whatever you guys are doing. Always keen to reach out and meet new people wherever they are in the world.
I'll put a link to your Twitter and your website down below. And thanks a lot for coming on, Jeff.